Hi everyone. I think we will get started. We've got a lot of content to go through, so I don't want to hold everybody up here that's with us. So welcome to our Running a Successful NEM event webinar. And if at any time you have any questions, you're welcome to just enter it down in the chat box there. Thanks, Erica. I think Erica just put a little note in there about that. My name is Rebecca, and we are online here with myself and Erica, who you see communicating with you in the chat right now. And just wanted to give a shout out to Jonathan as well, who's not here with us virtually, but he helped us put together all the content that we're going to go through here today. So thank you for that, Jonathan. So just a quick overview for what we're going to talk through this evening for sort of the elements that go into running a successful NEM event. We're going to talk through some ideas around activities, some of the work that goes into that, how to design really effective and successful, meaningful, impactful events and activities, thinking about the teamwork behind that, how to sort of plan and schedule for some advice there for the activities. And then we've got a few examples of some activities that have worked well in the past that might help you with a bit of inspiration. We're going to spend some time talking about volunteers as well. Volunteers are a key part of all the NEM events happening across the province. So we'll talk a little bit about how to recruit volunteers, what to do with your volunteers once you've got them to sort of keep them engaged, and then how to recognize them. And then as well, we've got some information, some advice, I guess, on reaching out to any speakers if that's something you're looking for in your events, or politicians to come and attend and bring awareness to those things happening in March. So we will get right into it. So I'm going to talk first about the activities, as you could tell from the agenda. So the first thing we really wanted to stress with activities is the big picture, as you can see from the title of this slide. So with the National Engineering Month being a great outreach opportunity for highlighting and promoting the world that we live and breathe with engineering and technology, we want to make sure we're taking this time to our full advantage to be able to have that impact that we're looking for. So one of the things that myself, I know as an engineer, has a tendency to do is focus in on sort of the activity itself and how am I going to, spend a lot of time researching and thinking about all the details that go into, maybe the mechanics or the electrical things that need to go in behind an activity. I'm personally a chemical engineer, so graduated from chemical engineering, so I'd probably spend lots of time thinking about, if I mix this together and that together, it's going to be so, it's so exciting. How can people not love this? But we're going to try and stress here to push our engineering brains a little bit aside and try and keep that big picture in mind. So our goal here is bringing engineering and technology to life for the next generation and the general public. So by being able to relate things in a way that they're going to connect with, we're going to get that impact that we're looking for. And they're going to have a great time with the activities. We know they will, and like I said, we're going to go through some of the details that you'll need to know for that, but we really wanted to stress that we want to sort of push ourselves outside of our comfort zone as engineers or technologists and think about how we can set things up in a way that's going to have that impact to the general public. Our method, so put on great events to inform and inspire. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of our audience. We want our audience to feel interested. So make sure you can relate to your audience. Think about who's coming to your event. What excites them? What do they want to know about? What do they like? What's sort of trendy and hip with them this going on in March 2017? Think about the energy level. So going into the sort of infinite detail of an activity is probably going to lose some momentum with activities. So you got to kind of keep your eye on the room, read the room a bit, and see how your audience is feeling. Make sure that they are feeling energized and connected to something that excites them. And then challenged. So there's going to be some really interesting discussion opportunities at these events. So if we're not asking those questions and sort of challenging the thinking and the ideas that are going on and pulling that information out of our audience and ourselves, then we're going to miss out on that opportunity. So thinking about how we can keep people feeling challenged. And then finally, proud of themselves, like, hey, I thought this was great. There was this sort of obstacle to overcome, and look at that. Maybe I didn't get it right the first time, but wow, that's pretty cool that as an engineering or a technology type activity, I was able to try this and test that, and look at me, look how I did. I was able to figure something out. So that's a way that a feeling that audience members are going to remember and bring them back to another event next year, if not sooner. Erica, if there's anything you wanted to add into these different topics, just go ahead and chime right in.
Perfect. Thank you, Becky. I just wanted to say that I think putting this big picture in our heads first and foremost before we get into the details of what exactly we're doing and how much time it's going to take and what materials we're using and all of that sort of thing, I think it really helps us keep in mind our definition for success. So the title of this webinar is about running a successful event. You could get every detail absolutely perfect, but if you're not energizing your audience, if you're not challenging them, if you're not interesting them, then how successful has it been? So hopefully we've given you a good sense of how we need to judge success, and you'll see it from your participants, and you'll have an opportunity to measure it and get participant feedback back from them as well. So we're going to discuss that actually in way more detail in measuring event effectiveness, which is another webinar that's coming up. So we just wanted to kind of put that reminder out there before we jump into the details that it's only about the details to the extent to which you can provide this experience for your audience. Thanks, Becky, for letting me chime in there.
Thanks, Erica. So before we get into the activities themselves, a little bit more, I guess. We wanted to bring you back to the messaging. So this key tool that we have for influencing the participants and the experience that they're going to have is something we wanted to have again at the forefront of your thinking. Now, one way to sort of orchestrate an event or an activity is to go online and research sort of cool activities for whatever sort of field you're looking for, and then think about how you can incorporate these messages into that activity. But we'd like to challenge you or encourage you or ask you to think about it, maybe sort of like reverse engineer it here. Let's think about these messages and activities that could tie into them. So kind of think about it on its head a little bit. Now, I'll talk through them quickly. I'm sure you've all seen these messages before. These were messages that were on the funding applications that you would have filled out, but I'll do a quick review of them. So the first one is engineering and technology solutions to a diverse set of 21st century challenges require a diversity of thinkers. There's a place for you in engineering and technology. So again, we want that diversity, you can see is bolded there. The overall theme for National Engineering Month this year is there is a place for you. So this is a pretty prominent one. And thinking about how we could set up an activity to encourage that diversity of thinking, maybe mixing up different teams or setting challenges up in a way that forces people to think outside the box or outside their usual way of thinking, or work together with people they're not used to working with. The second one is around engineering and technology shaping the world around us, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So again, thinking about how we can illustrate that this is true, really. So, talking to the participants about how they see engineering in the world, and thinking about what existed in the past and then what they're seeing today, and the part that engineering and technology are having on what they are going to see in the future, and setting up an activity that helps to drive that message home. And then engineering and technology apply creativity and imagination to turn ideas into reality. And I think this one it's really I think an easy message to apply to many different kinds of activities, because if you're planning to do something that is more of a hands-on type thing, then just that whole going through that, getting the thoughts out of your head, maybe onto paper, designing, iterating, and then being able to turn it into something that you can hold with your hands is really powerful to audience members or participants in your events, to see that, wow, it is pretty neat that as an engineer or a technologist, I'm able to take my ideas and actually shape them and bring them to life. And then engineering and technology are essential to the safety, health, happiness, comfort, and efficiency of our friends, family, and distant neighbors. Locally and globally, people are working for people. Engineers and engineering technologists make a world of difference. So this one has so many different elements to it, talking about safety and health and happiness and comfort. And I'm sure that many of the participants to your events wouldn't have considered how engineering and technology do play a part in things like happiness and comfort and health. So being able to set up activities that sort of bring that to light, or allow the participants to see that connection, is going to be really powerful. Now, with the activities, so we wanted to sort of go over sort of like the overall kind of design ideas of how you would set up a successful activity. So setting aside right now all that big picture thinking that we want you to keep sort of at the forefront, this is starting to get into the details. We know this is kind of the nuts and bolts of, we still have to plan our activities. So what do you mean? What does that look like? How can we do that? So here's sort of the start of that. So start thinking about, first and foremost, goals. So we talked a little bit in the beginning about getting to know your audience. So think about what do you want the participants to take away from that activity? And by take away, I mean they could physically take something away that they build, I guess, but more with the idea of sort of take away emotionally and mentally. What sort of experience do you want them to take away from participating in that activity? So what is that overall message that you are hoping that they will be able to connect? So the theme, as I mentioned, for this year, there is a place for you. Remember those messaging guidelines? We just went through them. So when you're starting out planning your activity, again, just you can build that right from the beginning, so that the whole design of the activity is going to incorporate those messages. With materials, so again, if you're doing something with an activity that requires some hands-on work, which we highly encourage, plan ahead. Do a trial run. It's going to help you understand what sort of quantities you'll need, if there's any extra little tools you might need for a certain activity. It'll help you have a clear picture of what's required, and then bring extras. So, prepare and then have some buffer for extras in case things don't go as planned. Agenda and division of tasks. So think about, with your sort of execution of your activities, who's going to be giving the instructions, what various roles are going to need to be happening during your events. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in the next few slides, but maybe you need someone keeping the time, maybe you need someone circulating the room. So just think about how your activity is going to sort of play out, like how much time you need to build in for reviewing it in the beginning and going through the instructions, and how much time individuals or teams would need to actually complete their activity or task they're working on, and then build in time at the end for some discussion, so which is the last point on here. So with the discussion, we want to think about how will you engage participants to make those discussion points relatable. So making sure that you have time to sort of circle back, bring them back to that goal, that overall message that we want them to take away, and building that time into your event is going to enable you to sort of leave them with the messages that we're hoping that they will take away from it. Erica, did you want to add anything before we move on?
I think I'm good. Thanks, Becky.
Okay, thanks. Now, teamwork is another element of activities that is going to be able to sort of set yourself up for success. So highlighting here again, first thing we wanted to say, challenge yourself. I talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but as engineers or technologists or technicians, we have a tendency to really want to focus in on the details or the mechanics of the activity itself, but we really want to kind of pull ourselves back, remind ourselves of what this is really all about, connect ourselves to the fact that we're participating in National Engineering Month, this amazing event, and we want to be present so that we can ensure our audience, our attendees, are taking away from the event the messages that we hope that they will. And we want to represent the profession so that we can potentially influence some of these participants to consider a path that maybe they didn't consider previously. So we're going to want to be prepared, thinking about material distribution. We're going to want to have someone, as I mentioned, maybe somebody circulating the room. This is a great time to be prompting those discussions. So I'll talk about it a little bit in the volunteering section, but having your volunteers well prepared will ensure that you're getting that deeper level of engagement, where you're having sort of that one-on-one discussion and being able to make those connections and really illustrate to the participants how they can relate their world, their life, their experiences to the things that we're talking about. You may or not need a timekeeper to keep you on track. You could have somebody looking after the participant feedback forms. So think about things like pens and pencils. These are the little details, but that we like to make sure we're prepared with. And with the participant feedback forms, again, just to highlight, we're not going to talk about them in detail here, but participant feedback forms are another tool that we use that is extremely important in giving us the sort of measures that we're looking for to see how we did as a collective group to host a successful event. And you could, don't forget about pictures. So someone to capture pictures. They can be used to promote events the following year. They can be used to, on social media to build some excitement there. Pictures speak 1,000 words. The faces of the engaged participants are so valuable to have. And then think about teamwork with the participants themselves. So the events you're considering, or the activity in your events that you're considering, may or may not include teams. Just a caution that if you are setting up events with teams, there is a real tendency that we've seen to create a sort of competition environment, which is fun and everybody loves to kind of be the winner, but we want to encourage you that if you are setting up a competition type environment, consider how you can still have all the teams go away with a sense of some sort of accomplishment, or talk about, maybe somebody had the best design and somebody else had the, I don't know, tallest building, and somebody else did it with the least amount of money, for example. So just when you're if you're going to be setting up teams, those are some things you might want to think about. In terms of the logistics of setting the teams up themselves, there's different ideas, and this is going to depend on your audience. So again, knowing your audience, doing your homework, figuring out the kind of dynamics around the people that are going to be coming to your event is going to give you a little bit of a heads up here. But the different ways you can do it, you can let them create their own teams. If it's maybe, for example, a class coming to one of your events, they're likely used to working in teams, so they may sort of easily form their own teams. You can randomize teams, so sort of doing the classic, if you want 4 teams, you number everybody off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and mix them up that way. And then just keep an eye on things. So if there's a team that gets created, if you've had to sort of randomize teams and a team gets created and they're all kind of looking in the other direction and nobody's making eye contact with each other, you're probably going to need to intervene. If you can bring them on board, great. You might consider mixing them up, sort of maybe distributing them amongst the other teams, or just pulling someone else in. Just, we can't give you the answer, but just kind of giving you the heads up that you should be just keeping an eye on that, so that the participants are feeling that they're looked after and taken care of, and going to come away from your event with a great experience. Now for planning and scheduling, so thinking about how much time you're going to need. So you're going to need, this is where doing a bit of a trial run will help you as well, but you're going to want to consider things like you're going to need some time to form the teams, and then we're going to need to talk to each other a bit and find their space in the room, and you want to build in time for that. You may or may not need time to distribute your materials depending on your activity. Again, may or may not need to build in some time for a design phase where they can sort of do it verbally or on paper, and then the actual active phase itself where they're doing the activity, and then please build in time for that post-activity discussion. And that can tend to be the area where if you get running behind on schedule, that's what may get cut out. But I would encourage you to, if you're watching your time carefully, and this is where having an assigned person as a timekeeper can help, I would encourage you to consider cutting out time in their active phase or their design phase instead of cutting out time for that post-activity discussion, because that's really where if you're going to be able to make that circle back, loop back to that goals that you were talking about, and when you introduce the activity and have that relatable discussion and get them excited before they're going to leave. And then build in buffer. So people get talking, participants get excited, time is going to fly during that activity, so you're going to want to build in some buffer time. You can always have ideas ready to go to extend your time if needed. So if you've built in buffer and everybody's super efficient and finished 10 minutes early, then be prepared to have some ways to extend that team to challenge them with another idea maybe. So some things to think about in advance. And then a little tip here, give out some time warnings. So if you're doing time challenges, give a 5-minute warning, 10-minute warning, whatever makes sense for your event. And if you are looking to cheat a little bit and cut some time out if you're running behind, another little tip is to sort of maybe give a 10-minute warning, but then really in reality only give them 5 minutes. So if you're looking to make up a few minutes, that can work sometimes. So I've got a few examples to talk through. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly here. I'm just watching the time, and I know we're about halfway through our time here. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about these, but these are just here to maybe inspire you, or if you'd like any more information about the specifics of these examples, by all means, let us know and we can pass that along afterwards. But just to give you some sort of examples of how that framework or that design of the activities fit in, here's some ideas. So the first one here is the 3 little pigs. So thinking about with the goals here of investigating structures that are built for a specific purpose. This one, I think you can really tie in the messaging around the health, happiness, and comfort that you can provide as an engineer to design that into those buildings. So not only does it need to withstand the big bad wolf blowing it down, but the pigs want to, they might want a couch, or they want to be comfortable. This is their home, so you can build that messaging in here. And then, you'll let them have time to go through and do their actual building. This is a type of activity where you could be circulating and talking about, oh, why did you pick that type of a design, and why do you think the pigs would like that, and did you think about including, a window here so that they can enjoy the beautiful view? And then send in the big bad wolf, the fun part of seeing if the houses will blow down, and then again tying back with some more discussion once you've had a chance to test everybody's designs on why everybody built the houses the way they did, and did they think about why did they put the walls a certain height, or why did they set the design up the way they did, and did they consider that the happiness of the pigs when they were doing it, for example. Another one we have here is a roller coaster competition. So this is a fun one. They get to design and construct a roller coaster that basically the car of the roller coaster is a marble. In this example, they're using pipe insulation that forms the track. So this one, they get to use some problem-solving skills. You can incorporate some interesting challenges into this one. You can stipulate it must have a certain number of loop-de-loops or a certain number of up and downs to build in those challenging elements. Make it fun. So there's a neat video you can watch to get them all excited about it. You can incorporate brainstorming as well. So if if again, reading your audience, getting to know them in advance, if it seems like they're kind of stalled out and not sure where to start, get everybody together, and this gives you a chance to sort of plant some ideas and talk about, did you think about this, and what about, you've got to put the pipe insulation up at a certain height so that you're going to be able to get enough momentum for it to go all the way around, and wouldn't it be really fun as a roller coaster rider if we had a loop-de-loop here, and again, building those messages in, and how, as an engineer, it's so neat that you get to have that kind of impact. The other thing you can do is start to talk about the engineering design process. So, as teams are creating their designs and then they actually get into actual building of it, they're going to find that it's not going to work right the first time, right? So those iterations, how we learn from them, what it means, how we incorporate that right into the work that we do, and how we celebrate it because we're learning from it. And the other way that is a neat way of messaging this one is, it's a very creative one. So you can talk about how this ties back to how, there's a place for you in engineering. Your ideas are your ideas. They're unique. They're your own. Without having you on this team, then we might not have had these great, diverse, different ideas. So you can take your ideas, you can implement them, and you can shape the world with them. This is a fun coffee maker dissection. So essentially, teams are given a coffee maker and asked to kind of hypothesize all the different parts that go into a coffee maker, and then they disassemble it and compare that against their list to see how much they really knew about coffee makers, and then they build it back up together. And you can, if they do it right, you could even have them brew a cup of coffee and then sit down all together and talk about all these great messages that we're talking about over a cup of coffee. This one is really interesting. You can really build in that idea of engineering is really around us everywhere. It's in all these everyday items that we're using, and we may not have ever considered how engineering and technology played a part in all of these things that we're touching every day and the impact that it's having on our lives. And then this is a communication or a kind of a teamwork type of an activity. So this is designed to illustrate the importance of communication in a team. So again, something that may not necessarily be associated with engineering technology is that the strength that you have if you have those communication skills, and really the necessity for them. So there's many different ways to do these types of activities, but this one in particular was basically a setup of Lego blocks. So the teams were provided a picture of what the Lego structure needed to look like, and then they're provided the individual blocks. The teams are set up with a project manager, a runner, and then some builders. The project manager can only communicate verbally, and the runner can only communicate with words, so written words. And so I'm sure you can imagine the difficulties that the project manager is going to have communicating a picture of what this structure needs to look like, and sort of a broken telephone effect there, getting through the runner who can only write words down, and then builders interpreting that and what it's going to look like in the end. So fun one. Again, it can be made a competition, but really you're going to come out of it with more than that. You can have so much discussion just around the challenges that all the teams are going to have when it comes to the whole activity, really, just the way it's set up and designed. Some more ideas. So There's lots of great ideas that you can find online. We'll refer you to the Engineer in Residence website, which has an extensive list of activity ideas. So that's at eir.ewb.ca/resources. A lot of other great activities on the tryengineering.org website. There's tons of good activity ideas out there. But be creative, modify when necessary to reach that audience. Again, don't get hung up on the activity itself. Really, the idea here is to think about what sort of experience you want to create for those participants, and how the activity is really just a tool to be able to get to that. Eric, is there anything you wanted to add in before we move on?
Yeah, I really love the point about encouraging teams to embrace their struggles and embrace the first few iterations when maybe they fail. I had this happen with a group of Girl Guides that I was presenting to a few years ago, and I was genuinely alarmed at one point because I thought, oh my goodness, if none of them can do this, we're supposed to be making them feel good, we're supposed to be setting them up to say, hey, this is an option for you, this is fun. We never said it was easy, but we certainly don't want everyone to walk away feeling like it's impossible. So I tried not to let my alarm show, but, we just kept trying, and finally we did get it working, and not every group got theirs to work. But I tried to tell them at the end, this is very realistic, and when you're struggling for something, you don't always get it right, but you can keep trying, and eventually you can get it right, and you can fight, and you can struggle, and don't hold on to that feeling of failure and think, I am a failure. I think we can sometimes forget that kids can sometimes feel very critical of themselves and very nervous, and they want to do a good job, and so even just a little bit of kindness and encouragement from you as a leader and a presenter, I think it can go a really long way. So taking the time to make sure you're well prepared, you know what your team is doing, you've got your materials, you've got your pencils, you've got whatever you need to feel good and present, and make eye contact, and give those smiles and give that positive encouragement. Find something good about everybody's project and say something good about everyone, because at the end of the day, they're here to have a good experience, and hopefully they will come back wanting more, not feeling like this was too much, but this was a challenge that they were able to work on and eventually get to. So I love that point. I think it's really important. And looking at how the overall outcome and the messaging connects in with that planning, I think is really important. So I think unless there are any questions, are we going to jump into the volunteer portion now?
Yeah, I think there may have been one or two sort of sum up slides here.
Okay,
just
cool.
Kind of some reminders around things. A lot of these we've already talked about. So avoiding stereotypical messaging around engineers are just technology focused. So again, just what we've been saying, tie it back to that messaging. Connect activities with social implications of similar projects. So think about things maybe going on in the community where you're doing your activity, things that your audience members are going to connect with the real world. So if you're doing an activity about some sort of, like the Three Little Pig example, for example, you could talk about how they're building their houses in an area, and maybe there's some houses being built in your own community, and how they can relate to that. Using those activities to highlight engineering in the world around us. Sort of think of the coffee maker example we were talking about, how it really is everywhere. We're touching things every day that engineers and technologists have influenced and impacted. Mix up teams when time permits. So really here we're just saying kind of promote that diversity of thinking within activity groups if you're using groups. Encourage that diversity to come up with these amazing ideas that you wouldn't necessarily have come up with otherwise. And just have fun. Don't stress. Don't be overly technical when possible. As we think as engineers, we have a tendency to we feel comfortable with those technical details. So we want to make sure we're thinking about our audience members here and putting the idea of them having fun and connecting with engineering and technology in maybe a way that they didn't before, instead of focusing on those technical details. And then, so this is just some more prep stuff. Make sure we've talked about this. Have your materials ready. Think about those timelines we talked about, communicating those with your team, and suggested already, do a trial run so everybody knows what's going on. So now we'll get into volunteer, some volunteer information.
Great. I just wanted to say one quick thing about the checklists of being prepared and then having division of responsibility during your event and then afterwards. There are some checklists in your scorecard that will help you with that. So if you haven't received your scorecard in an email, it should be coming to you within about the next 24 hours. Maybe 48. So you'll have that, and then we're going to be doing a webinar to run down how to fill in your scorecard. So we'll be getting into that in a lot more detail, but it is worth saying that when you're prepared, it's going to give you the ability to create a successful experience for your participants. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about volunteers, since we know that having a team, very rarely does anyone try and put on a National Engineering Month event by themselves. You usually need a team, and no one's getting paid to do this, to put on the events. Very few of our NEM events are actually run by any staff members. Most of them are run by volunteers, which we think is amazing, because it brings out the people who are most passionate and most committed to the cause of spreading the message that engineering and technology are great options for careers, and they're vital to the health, safety, and happiness of everyone in the general public. So all that to say, you need some volunteers. And when you think about getting volunteers for your event, you want to have people who are a good fit for what you're looking for, and think about it as a win-win. When you get people, you get the support, and they gain experience and skills. They have an opportunity to build a great community, build their resume, and also have a good time as they go. So that's a little bit of sort of the what's in it for you pitch that you can put together. Next slide, please. So as we've said, there are lots of things that they get out of it. They get maybe some networking. I know I've met some really great people when I've been volunteering for outreach events. They build leadership skills. It really takes, especially to think about an explanation of why you became an engineer or chose to be a technologist and what that looks like. There's some leadership and some personal growth opportunities there as well, as you learn to present things and be encouraging and be present to your audience, and they get to pay forward their skills and perspective. We hear over and over from our volunteers that they feel so lucky to have the career and the experiences that they've had, and they want to pay it forward to the next generation. So that's a really nice feel-good factor as well. Also, it's fun, but we like to say it's not just fun, it's also about making this bigger contribution. So some other things that they might get out of it, who knows, depends what they're doing. Maybe if you have a really well-attended event, they will build their network or get some media exposure or get a chance to practice their photography skills. Just depending on your event and depending what you're doing, they can get all sorts of other things out of it as well. So be sure to pitch that to your people when you're getting them to come out. If you have good volunteer recruitment, you have even more power to put on more events. We issued a challenge this year to our community of organizers. It's not that much more work to do 2 or 3 events than it is to do one. Once you've thought of it and you've gone through it, you might as well do a couple, so why not? And if you've got the volunteers, you can do that. You can make your events even better. We're always about continuous improvement, and ask them to engage their networks. So if you're trying to fill a room, say, with 80 or 90 kids and you're promoting to the general public, you've got 5 or 10 volunteers on your team and they each know 20 or 30 people, you can fill that room much more quickly and easily with people that are really engaged and feel ownership for the success of your event. And of course, everybody's good at something. Just in keeping with our diversity of skills messaging guideline, you're going to bring in some people who are good at the promotion and the organization, some people who might excel more on the design side of things, maybe someone who's really good with the media, and we'll have some ideas there, someone who might be good at going out and finding some sponsors to donate some sandwiches or some popsicle sticks for your event. Whatever it is that you might need, you're going to need people who have different strengths and skills. So that's a great thing to think about when you're doing your volunteer recruitment as well. So we have a whole bunch of ideas. We sometimes get feedback that, oh, I never know where to find people. So here are some ideas for us if you're feeling like your well is running dry. Obviously, using your existing network, this sounds like a really obvious one, but as we're going to talk about, you might be surprised at who will say yes if you muster up the courage to ask them. So ask a friend, ask a volunteer, and then ask them to recruit someone else. You can post a request on your social media page. Rose has been doing that really well since even 2014 here. You can see she gets volunteers to sign up for her Inspire events to facilitate. So those are absolutely vital. Volunteers are really important to the success of those events, as with other NEM events as well. So another place you can find new volunteers is within your circle of influence. And maybe they don't necessarily need to be engineers or technologists or even engineering students in order to participate. Maybe you can pull in different people that have a wider cross-section of backgrounds and interests and strengths as well. And that's actually a really interesting conversation to have with someone who doesn't have an engineering background, but you convince them, we really want kids to be empowered and to feel good about engineering, and how they can kind of relate to that and plug into that. So again, any one of these people, friends, family, classmates, I have very successfully tapped into my alumni network, my former classmate network, and they've had great experiences. They say, thank you for letting me participate. And I say, you know what, thank you for helping out. We always need more volunteers campaign-wide. So even your neighbors or members of other communities that if your kid plays a sport, maybe some of the other parents, that's often a good source of networking and bringing folks in to help out. So if you have a role for them and you have something to do, open your mind a little bit of who can contribute to this. It doesn't have to be just engineers or technologists. And one of the most cited reasons that people say they don't volunteer is because no one asked. So if you make a personal approach, I would encourage you, even though it maybe save you a little more time, don't email 20 people at once and saying, can anyone help? Take the time to, craft a personal email or pick up the phone or send a text that makes it clear that you want this person to help. And if you can tell them exactly what it is that you would like from them so that they don't have to sort of feel like they're writing a blank check with their time, you say, I need help to put together kits, be specific about when and how long, I need you for an hour, I need you for 3 hours, and here's what's happening and here's what I need. Would you be willing to help? Just put that question out there and you might be surprised at who says yes. And here's an example. So this, we were actually in kind of desperate mode. This is an actual message that I sent to someone that I knew in Ottawa because we really needed some help to get some people together in Ottawa. We were gonna basically have to say no to a bunch of Girl Guide groups in Ottawa if we weren't able to get some folks together. So this was a former classmate of mine, and I said basically, look, here's the whole deal. I think you would be great at this, and good for you for going on the trip. Like a little personal touch there as well. It's not a form. It's not a mass email message. And you know what? My friend just responded back to say, sounds fun. Sure, I'm in. So there you go. It was that easy. I really just had to send that little paragraph. It took me maybe 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes to write it all out, and that meant that this person came and volunteered and had a great experience. I saw the photos afterwards, huge smiles, and I helped create that. So think about who you could talk to in your network. Send a message. It's just that simple. Ask them to come out and see what you can create, and they get so much out of it, as well as the young people that participate as well. I think it's also good when you can show that this is something you're doing. You're not just asking them to do it and you don't know anything about it, but like making it clear this is something that you're into as well. If they know you and they trust you, they're that much more likely to say yes as well. So you can broaden your search. We think, if you're still into newspapers or the online version of a newspaper, you can do that. If you're looking for participants at high schools, colleges, sometimes there are student volunteer centers or student career centers on campuses, and leverage social media as much as you can. Don't just put a general blast out there, put an @ And again, we keep coming back to Ottawa PEO here, but this actually really worked. Using the NEM hashtag and then using an @ means that that person's getting a direct notification in their inbox, and it makes them that much more likely to notice your request. So more tips on finding new volunteers. We sort of touched on this earlier, but they know that they're more likely to say yes if they know what the volunteer role entails. And as much as you can, you want to say to them, I know you are so great at organizing things. We need someone to come help us put together kits. Or, I know you're such a friendly face. We would love to have you be the first person that the kids see when they arrive to, register for the event and get their materials for the design challenge. Sort of make them feel like you're recognizing something that they have to offer and you're matching it to a role you'd like them to play. I think that makes them just feel a little bit more special and appreciated, and it helps them be able to picture in their mind what they'll be doing. We think that you've got such a great eye and you know so much about water systems. We'd love to have you, come and give some feedback to these kids that have designed these water systems, or whatever your event might be. So now with all those tips, hopefully you found all of the volunteers you need. Now we're ready to look into how you can prepare them to have a good experience. You need to onboard them, and we say debrief. I think what we mean there is actually briefing them on the plan for the event. Getting everybody together in person is absolutely ideal, but if you need to do it online, say via Skype or on a conference call or a webinar, that works too, just to let everybody kind of understand who they are and help them feel prepared, give them the chance to understand this is the message we want everybody to take away, and this is about how long the activity is going to be, and these are the materials, and are there any questions, and give them a sense of that overall strategy. And we'd be happy to provide you with a copy of these slides if you want to use any of them to say, look, we want everyone to feel energetic and encouraged and challenged, and giving them the vision of what you hope to create on the day will be really helpful, and it will let them kind of see how they can impact that and make it happen. So again, this theme keeps coming back, right? You want everyone to be energized and volunteers and understanding what they're doing. So again, I mentioned finding a fit between the skills of the people and then the things that you're going to assign them to do. And we think it's important, recognize the things you need to control and when you can kind of let somebody go. Okay, I trust you to organize this process. Here's the goal. The task is have everybody pick up their name badge when they walk in the door. So it's up to you. You want to do them in alphabetical order, or you want to, split them up into 2 groups or whatever. Like, let people take ownership and take control of making certain things happen. Don't feel you have to manage every little detail. That's called effective delegation, and hopefully you've had a chance to practice that in your professional life as well. So give them support, give them motivation, check in with them. Becky had a really good idea earlier. She said, have like a little bit of a system where you can check in with them. You do a little thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing. If they need something, let them know that there's someone there who will support them in case they can't leave their post or take a break for whatever reason. They need to be able to know that there's someone there for them. So if you can pair them with an experienced volunteer, that's ideal, or you can be the one they turn to as sort of the overall volunteer coordinator. So hopefully that helps you understand what is needed to prepare your volunteers. Whenever you can, give them that overall vision of what you're trying to create, and when you have several steps or it's something kind of complicated, maybe show it to them so that you're sort of modeling something and setting them up for success. So all this sounds pretty simple as we discuss it, but it's really surprising, I find, how often these details get overlooked and you end up with people who just really aren't quite in the zone. They're not feeling as confident and excited as they could to provide that experience to the participants because they're a little bit shaky, I guess, in their own confidence. So supporting your volunteers lets them create the best possible atmosphere for your participants. So attendee FAQs, this is a good idea. You can put this on a website. You can put this on an Eventbrite page if you're using that. If things you anticipate that the crowd might ask, maybe something about parking or wheelchair accessibility, or how long the event is going to go. Maybe run this by someone who's not involved with the event. Get their external perspective, because you as the organizer, you might take certain information for granted, and that would be really good to have to give directly to your participants. You can also give the FAQ answers to your volunteers so that if someone comes to them, they don't have to run back to you and ask for an answer. They are empowered to deal with that question themselves. Recognizing your volunteers, we're big on this, especially this year, National Engineering Month 2017. We are going to send you a really nice certificate, a certificate template where you can write in the names of the people that have helped you out and give that to them, make a big deal, fuss over your volunteers. Hopefully you have, maybe you have a little bit left over in your budget to buy them a small gift, something, even a $5 Tim card or a Starbucks card can be very meaningful for them. And having them acknowledged, give them a handshake, give them a smile and say, couldn't have done this without you. This was great. I hope you'll come back next year. That is huge. Before the event, obviously, you can tell them what they're a part of. As I said, you can use these slides or refer them to the website or help them understand, it's not just our event here locally in Sault Ste. Marie. There are events going on all over Ontario, and we're part of a network. We're part of this big family of thousands of volunteers across Ontario and even more across Canada that are doing the same thing in March. We're all sort of in this together, and isn't that kind of cool? So you give them that ahead of time. During the event, we mentioned checking in with them, giving them breaks, obviously, find out if they want to switch up. Hopefully they won't get too bored. Not sure how long your event is, but definitely think about that and make sure that they're fed and watered and that they feel good. And then afterwards, you want to let them know their impact. And as much as you can, give some positive feedback, some direct feedback. Joni, I loved seeing you interact with that team. I could tell you were having a good time, and it seemed like the kids really appreciated you, coming over and helping them out, kind of thing. It sounds obvious. It sounds like just a little comment, but it can mean a lot to people, and it can really make a difference. So we mentioned a thank you note or an email. We have certificates that you can use as well. If you want to provide them with a keepsake, that's great. If you take a photo of the volunteers all together and then send it out to them or post that on your chapter website or your newsletter, send it to us and we'll put it on the NEM website. These are all part of making sure your volunteers have a great experience. And so if anything, we love highlighting and celebrating success. That's part of our job as the overall NEM Ontario coordinators. We would love to tell a story about something. If you see something amazing or even just someone that you feel deserves that recognition, let us know. You've got our contact info, and we're always looking for things to feature on the blog because we want to really paint that picture of those one-on-one conversations, those little activities. They all can add up to a really big impact when you look at the volume of them happening across the province and then how they happen year over year over year. We're literally opening people's minds and possibly changing their lives, and that's pretty amazing. So definitely want to recognize the people that are doing that and keep it going. So this is a little bit of on the scorecard. We're going to have a webinar that discusses the scorecard in much, much more detail, but this is something we introduced that was new last year. And we want to make sure that we understand how many volunteers are a part of your event. And this could be someone who helps in a relatively small way with just, watching the door, helping put up signs ahead of time, setting up the coffee, or picking up the donuts, whatever that might be, to someone who spends, much more time hands-on. You want to recognize all of those people that played a role. And we want to reward you in turn by giving you 5 free points on the scorecard if you tell us how many people were involved in your event. So last year, it's hard to say because not everyone answered this question, unfortunately. We hope to get much better data this year, but it was somewhere between 1,200 and 1,600 people, volunteers in total volunteering to put together all the events across Ontario, which is pretty amazing. So the collaboration scoring, that's all about getting a bunch of organizations together, so that's always nice to see. And maybe you want to give some recognition if, say, you're a PEO event and you invited some OSET volunteers out, maybe you want to give, give a heads up to the OSET organization and say thank you, OSET, not just these individuals that came out, but also to the organization that they came from. We love seeing that collaboration. That's something that also it's pretty special about National Engineering Month that allows us to have such a big impact is because we are all working together. So there's all the organizations. We're going to get into this in a lot more detail on the scorecard, but again, we love to see that collaboration and getting that extra mixing of volunteers. When you get multiple organizations involved, you're going to end up with a broader network and a more successful event. So that's great. If you want to recruit some industry speakers, we think let your fingers do the walking. You can do a Google search. You can look out locally for businesses. We really think that having people come in to share from a business perspective or from an industry perspective part of what's going on. Let's say you're doing a water event, you might want to have someone from the municipality come in and talk about the actual challenges of managing a storm water system or a wastewater system. It's good for them because they get that publicity out in the community. Some companies are already thinking of how they can build their hiring pipeline, meaning they're looking to hire the engineers and technicians and technologists of tomorrow, and they know, especially if they're talking to students or high school students or even the really sharp grade 7-8 students, they might really have their eye on them as future employees. They get to put it in as community service. They get their visibility out there and build some goodwill, and again, developing leadership. So it's really, if you approach a company and ask them, would you be willing to send a speaker or get them involved in your outreach event in some way, it's really beneficial for them to do so. So if you'd like to learn more about the benefits to businesses of doing engineering outreach, please let us know. Send Becky or myself an email, because we would love to chat more with you about that topic. It's something that we're very passionate about, and because we've been doing outreach for so many years, we've been involved with the National Engineering Month program as well as many other outreach engagement opportunities. We really can see the benefits from a very unique perspective, so we're excited to share that information. If you want to recruit politicians, well, they are more available than ever. If you want it local, federal, provincial, municipal, they're really mostly all on Twitter. It's amazing. If you just Google around, you can find a list of politicians on Twitter. We have a list of politicians on Twitter. Sometimes you can call their offices. Emailing doesn't tend to do too much, but if you call them, it's very likely you'll get a response. You speak to their staff member, let them know this event is going on. They love these opportunities. They're really great, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, engineering, innovation, infrastructure, all of these topics are really bread and butter for politicians. And as a side note, we really would love to see more engineering and technology people getting into politics. So starting by making that connection at your local level or at the provincial level even through your National Engineering Month events is a good first step in that direction. So again, we're going to talk about this when it comes to amplifying your event, but we would love to see we love to see those pictures. If you can post them real time, or you can send them to us on the Dropbox. You can just see, especially photos like this that show some kind of action. You can see some of the smiles, maybe some of the concentration, or maybe frustration there on those kids' faces. It brings back the event and really makes it exciting that you captured it. So we're going to get into that again in our coming webinar when we talk about amplifying your event, the impact of your event through traditional and social media. And there's just a quick rundown in case you're not already linked in with us. We would love for you to follow us and get hooked up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn for National Engineering Month Ontario. So I think that's it. We have some media resources. Again, we're going to talk about all this in our other webinar, which is all about amplifying your event presence. And we look forward to seeing you online. There are a few hashtags we can use, and there's our website as always. It's got a brand new look, so let us know what you think, and please don't hesitate to send to us any questions or concerns you might have. We're here to help, and hope you have a wonderful event. I think that's all we have to say. Becky, thanks for the opportunity to present to these folks this evening.